Welcome back, folks. I saw this article, I think, posted today on Roosh's forum, and I wanted to go through it. 15 signs you're a dopamine slave. What is dopamine, folks? That is the neurotransmitter that is released when you do or complete some type of, how do I say this? It's like a pleasure hormone or pleasure neurotransmitter. When you look at bad things on the internet, like pornography, you're triggering dopamine. When you play video games, every time you fire that gun in the game and the enemy dies or the player dies and you get that sense of satisfaction, that's dopamine. When you eat really tasty food, dopamine, etc., etc., etc. So dopamine is definitely a thing you want to be aware of. And it's going to be very hard to cut it all out altogether. And I'll be totally honest about what I see in this post, because I know just by skimming the 15 signs that I'm probably guilty of quite a few. But we will go through them, and this is something to definitely be aware of, and you need to try to limit your use on a lot of this stuff. Yep. Number 1, drinking coffee daily. So right off the bat, guilty as charged. I definitely start off my day with a single cup of coffee. In fact, I'm so lazy, I usually just crack open a couple instant coffees, put them together, water, done. But yeah, I've tried quitting, and it's tough. And I think I've gone about 5 or 6 days, and then I had to cave in. It is tough stuff, man. It is harder to quit coffee than a lot of other things, believe me. But yeah, if you can abstain from drinking all caffeinated beverages, good for you. This is a super hard one for me. But yeah, there's number 1. You modify your behavior to be seen as sexually attractive by the opposite sex. A beautiful girl gave you eye contact. That feels good. Then she gave you her number. That feels even better. Then she allowed you to take her to bed. Paradise on earth. In order to accomplish these feelings as a man, you only need to hit the gym, get a cool haircut, dress well, have game, lie constantly about your attentions, and dedicate hundreds of hours per year toward transacting with the opposite sex for shallow ends while debasing your soul. If you embark on that path, women become the gatekeepers of your happiness, and you won't be able to be happy without them. I definitely was guilty of this too, particularly before the relationship that I'm currently in. But yeah, going to the gym definitely, and to be honest, it still does. Like, I'm going to be honest, like when I think about lifting weights, half of it is about strength and my power as a man, and the other half is about being vain and vanity and looking good in the mirror, and it's not good. I admit that. So be very careful about this. Number 3, you post things on social media and compulsively check for reactions. Guilty as charged. When I post a video on YouTube, I admit that I'm often checking to see about once an hour at least how many people have viewed the video. Can you believe it? Like, I actually care. It's a little pathetic, to be honest. I have less than 250 subscribers to this channel. And I might average like 20 or 30 views a day tops. So it's pretty sad that I actually care, but I do. It's bad. You'll end up becoming a slave to that as well. Let's see what Roosh said. I've had major issues regulating my social media usage. I can post gibberish on Twitter right now, and many responses will come in, releasing dopamine. I've made efforts to reduce my usage, but it's still tempting to continually check responses. It would be a blessing in disguise if Twitter or YouTube banned me. Yes, he definitely limits his use on Social Galactic. We only have 1 post from him. He doesn't use it. It's kind of sad. You masturbate or fornicate. This is the real bad stuff. It's super sinful, and I admit that I definitely was caught into this when I was younger. I have a lot of regrets about how much porn I was looking at when I was in early high school, how much weed I was smoking, how many video games I was playing nonstop. That triple cycle of those 3 things just kept perpetuating me in a loop of Introvertedness, being shy from girls all the way till age 18. Throwing my manhood and testosterone away into a tissue every night. Only to come to realize years later it was super sinful. It's definitely against the Bible. It's quoted in multiple books of the New Testament. You should not be doing this. Also, it seems to have an effect on how you look at women. You just start looking at them as sexual objects. Every woman you look at, you'll start undressing her and trying to imagine what she looks like in a porno. It gets your mind totally badly and negatively wired for sex, like constantly. It's just evil stuff. I can tell you though, if you go no fap and no porn and you quit fapping, it will go away and you can rewire your brain back to being normal, but it will take time. You drink alcohol to the point of intoxication. Sometimes, yeah. I have definitely had instances where it's just one beer and I'm good. I've also had instances where I said I'm going to get drunk, and I do. So, very, very bad. Let's see. What did Roosh say? Alcohol feels good because it turns off your conscience and allows you to be whoever you want to be. You can be a tough guy, a Casanova, a celebrity, a Miss Universe. Alcohol suspends reality so that you can create a fantastic world where you are more confident, beautiful, or intelligent than you really are. For a brief period, I was still drinking alcohol after receiving God's grace, but noticed that it was evaporated. I noticed that it evaporated all my willpower to resist lust. If I was in a bar and had 2 drinks, I could not stop the lustful desire for the woman around me. I concluded very early in my walk with Christ that alcohol is Satan's elixir and should be avoided. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bad stuff all around. And I noticed that if I do drink, I also feel like the Lord's Spirit leaves me temporarily while I'm drunk. It's very weird. But I've noticed that. I barely drink, but when I do, sometimes I drink too much. Sometimes I don't. But I would agree with this. Be careful about alcohol. Number 6, you anticipate eating rich or sweet foods. You're having a long day at work and can't wait for it to be over. You decide that you'll treat yourself for dinner to a juicy burger and a big piece of chocolate cake. The anticipation of this meal is now your main way of getting through the day. What you've done is create a sham savior out of a meal. Man, I used to be the exact same way with video games, not food. I would always be hooked on one game or another, and it'd be a long day at work, and I would anticipate that game that I was going to play that evening after work, and that's how I got through my day. Gluttony is very sinful, regardless of what you're gluttoning on. Since foods that create pleasure tend not to be good for you, you will sacrifice your health and create a physical dependency, like with coffee or alcohol, to counterbalance the stress or pain of life. There is nothing wrong with eating tasty food in moderation, but you long ago crossed the line if you fantasize about food. Interesting. View food as nourishment, not a source of pleasure. I also say the same thing, but I say view food as nutrition source, nourishment, and not as a source of entertainment. That is definitely the mistake that most Americans are constantly making, and they tell me, or they've said, you've heard it said, I just can't lose weight. I just can't lose weight. Meanwhile, they're like preparing a 2-hour meal for them and their family that's full of like carbohydrates and fat and just like not healthy at all. But that's what they do, right? Like we have to like make this giant, ridiculous ritual where we're making really good food, trying to become world-class chefs. It's a source of entertainment that's ruining this country. We've got 1 out of every 3 Americans is fat. The other third is not fat. And then the final third is morbidly fat, morbidly obese. So only 1/3 of United States Americans, 1/3 of Americans are not actually fat, which is pretty disgusting. It's all about viewing food as nourishment, not pleasure and entertainment. You snack throughout the day. Yeah. I've got a friend right now who's trying to diet, and I'm like trying to coach him through it, and he's like, I'm just not losing weight. And I'm like, well, what are you eating? And he's telling me about the diet, and then he's like, oh, and by the way, I'm snacking. on cashews and beef jerky. And I'm like, well, there you go. That's why your diet's not working, dude. You're snacking on crap. Particularly the cashews. But yeah, snacking is definitely not a fasting thing. I mean, if you like fasting at all, snacking is not the way to do it. Here it is, solution. If you're an office worker who sits down all the time, eat 2 meals a day. 12 and 7. Intermittent fasting. If you're a farmer or lumberjack and you need extra calories to perform your masculine work, eat 3 meals a day. No snacking. Word. Number 8, you use online dating. Online dating could make sense if you use a site named celibateorthodoxchristiansingles.com. But Tinder, Bumble, OkCupid, you end up spending more time on those sites engaging in the drama of seduction than connecting with your life mate. You get attached to the act of receiving a match, texting someone, and coming up with a response or put down. You may become a master of emojis, but you may occasionally fornicate, but you will remain single. Many people, especially women, use it as an alternate form of entertainment to receive fresh notifications that break up their day. It's no surprise that they get addicted to the dating apps even when they don't care to date. Not only that, but the validation. Women love getting matches all day long to remind them of how pretty they are. They never stop with wanting to feel validated. But yeah, and I used to do the online dating thing. It's been almost 5 years now, but it's dumb, and it's literally that. You get attached to the act of receiving a match, texting someone, and coming up with a witty response. Man, I came up with some really witty responses. Some of those worked, and some of them didn't. It is a ridiculous game. And it is very, very much addicting. The first thing you do when you wake up is check your phone. Well, the first thing I do when I wake up now is get on the scale and weigh myself and take that data down. But then I go and make my coffee. And by then I've already checked my phone. So, yeah. Not good. Solution: turn off your phone when you go to bed and only turn it on after you complete your morning prayer and Bible study. If someone you know has an emergency during that time, they can call 911. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I kind of need it for work, unfortunately. My gig is kind of like a 24/7 thing. Not that I'm constantly working in the evening, but I get inundated with notifications and things that I got to take care of, and it's unfortunate, but I'm kind of guilty on this one. Finally, one that I don't fucking care for so much. Number 10, you love international travel. By the way, forgive my language. I'm like the worst. I'm really trying to clean up my language, and then I always end up dropping some type of F-bomb at least once in a video every now and then, and it's annoying. It's not good. I'm trying to get better at that. You love international travel. I mean, I wouldn't mind traveling, but no, I am very much like a stay put kind of guy. So I guess this isn't me, but let's see. I would place international travel right underneath sex when it comes to the intensity of a dopamine release, and since travel can aid in actual sex, it's no surprise that they go hand in hand. I heard of one man who was so addicted to both that he would travel to a foreign country, spend all his time there trying to fornicate with women, and then write a sex guide about it so other men can do the same. What a dummy. Oh yeah, that was Roosh, right? Like, didn't Roosh have a bunch of books? Like Bang, Switzerland, or Bang, Sweden, or something like that. Pretty sure. You've probably noticed that the act of travel has become normalized to the point where something is wrong with you if you dislike it. Ask someone what their hobbies are and they will always include travel in their response. It's a normie activity because it's an easy and reliable way to release dopamine. Solution: embrace your place of birth and remain there. Chances are you've already traveled more than most humans who have ever lived. If you really need to go somewhere, visit a national park and let the mountain air invigorate you. 100%. And where we moved Recently, it has a ton of mountains. It's really nice. So, 100%. I don't care for travel. So, finally. You root for a false tribe. You love the Dallas Cowboys. When they win a game, you feel a burst of pleasure. When they lose a game, you feel sad enough to seek out pleasure in other ways. You love Donald Trump. When he sticks it to the media, you feel pleasure. But when he is attacked by the Democrats, you feel angry. You love your anti-white revolutionary identity. When there is an outrage that cancels a Nazi, you feel good. When you notice that truth still persists in the world, you feel sad. It's a simple matter to establish an unhealthy relationship with a secular sports team, corporation, politician, brand, or identity so that you feel good when your tribe does well and bad when it doesn't. Solution: don't look to corporate groups or worldly identities for happiness. Yeah, I hear you. It's kind of hard not to feel it when it comes to Trump. But I can definitely say with certainty that I'm not attached to any sports teams or professional athletic leagues or whatever you want to call them. And I do know people who have straight like cried or gotten upset to the point of like really being upset. Like really upset when their favorite sports team lost a game. Like that's ridiculous. So cool. Number 12, you are first in line to buy new gadgets. Yes. Not me, actually. Thankfully, not me. For many decades, 2-blade razors were enough for a man's face, and then 3 blades came out, and then 4, and then 5. 5 blades will save you. Now we're seeing the same with technology. 2 cameras on your phone are not enough. Now there are 3, 4, 5 cameras and smartphones that fold. Phones packed with more pixels than the human eye can even perceive. And people line up to buy these products thinking they are just one gadget away from material salvation. The purchase will give them a big dopamine boost, yet soon their life will return to where it was, but now with more dependency on the gadget. Agreed. I noticed this a long time ago with video games, but just about anything I ever buy. I play with it for 3 days, and then it's boring, and it gets put away into the closet and never gets used again. And yeah, it's annoying. Once you start becoming content with just like normal day stuff, not having the best, fastest, whatever, you'll be much more at peace. So I'm pretty good on this one. Number 13, you fantasize about the future. The present is boring, hard, and uncomfortable. It would feel good to hump my pillow in bed while fantasizing about sex. It feels good to imagine if I had more money to live in the coolest part of town. It feels good if I went to a party and everyone wanted to talk with me. All fantasies come to an end, and then you have to face life as you are, no better than before your invented delusions. All pleasure fantasies that are oriented towards the future are harmful because they forsake the present, a time of action and submission to God's will. Solution: stop fantasizing about scenarios that yield pleasure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I often think about the future. I often fantasize about living in like Idaho or Montana on a rural ranch or property where it's just me and my dogs, my kids, and my wife, and my like rural dream life. Yeah, it's just a fantasy though. Number 14, you crave compliments and recognitions for your worldly accomplishments. I banged a hot girl. Compliment me. I got a new job that pays a lot of money. Compliment me. I just broke my personal deadlift record. Compliment me. I went on an all-expenses-paid journey to Dubai thanks to a generous benefactor. Compliment me. My content went viral and now I'm some kind of a famous. Compliment me. When you receive a compliment, dopamine is released and you feel good. If you get attached to this pathway, you live entirely for others in the hopes they compliment you. And when people no longer want to do so, you become like a desperate drug addict who will do anything for just one more hit. Solution: seek out only the compliments of God through his loving grace, not the meaningless praise from worldly people who don't have any stake in your salvation. I like that one. Okay. Oof. Yeah, okay, this one might be me, guys. I might have a lot of videos in my channel about putting others down. Though I do so to teach others a lesson, it would seem that I've been pretty harsh. When you're of the world, you also compete for things of the world. Every single interaction, conversation, and transaction is its own competition. Either you are winning all of these competitions, which makes you feel pleasure, or you are losing. A worldly person can only take so many losses before it bruises their ego, so they must imagine themselves as the winner in everything. I'm more attractive, I'm smarter, I'm a better deal maker. I make more money, I'm more crafty. I make better memes, I'm more conservative, I'm more authentic, I'm more cultured, I'm a better parent, and though I'm not stronger than that guy, I get laid more than him, so in the end I'm still better. Every day becomes an exercise in maximizing the number of times you can say, I'm better than this person, all for a little dopamine. Solution: the only competition to be won is your salvation. The worldly possessions or powers of anyone you encounter are their business. A Christian life will be helpful in reducing your pride and not judging others on inconsequential matters. Wow. Yeah, I mean, basically Roosh admits in his conclusion that he's guilty of most of, if not all of these things, or at least used to be, and I am too, and I know that a lot of you are as well. But it's good to be aware of this kind of stuff, guys, and do your best, particularly if you're trying to live a Christian life, or the best Christian life that you can live, to not get caught up in a lot of this stuff. It seems to touch on a lot of the sins, right? And a lot of the commandments that you're not supposed to violate about fornication and whatnot, but also the sin of pride and the sin of gluttony. So be extra aware of this. You can find this article on Roosh V's site, 15 Signs You're a Dopamine Slave. I think tomorrow we'll read this one, Men of the West, Last Days of the American Republic, which for sure are coming. We'll touch on that one next. And with that, have a good one.